The movie I'm going to talk about today is essentially about an international student experiencing culture shock on so many different levels. In the beginning, our main character gives into peer pressure to be liked and to have friends in this scary new environment. After experiencing betrayal, she then chooses the path of revenge and loses herself along the way. In the end, everything that she had built for herself, from her reputation, her friendships, her grades, all came crashing down. But with every ending, there is a beginning. And this movie is also about overcoming it all, admitting your mistakes, standing tall even if you have to stand alone, seeking forgiveness, receiving closure, starting over, and creating a new chapter for yourself. This is 2004 Mean Girls. I wouldn't say our main character Cady is sheltered, but she is basically an international student experiencing culture shock on so many levels. From being homeschooled to going to public school, from an undisclosed country in Africa to America. She is in a completely new environment and exposed to people who act, talk, and behave so differently than what she is used to. She is exposed to different social dynamics, group dynamics, gender dynamics, stereotypes, and politics. While in middle school, I went from a predominantly Black and Latino school to a predominantly white and Asian school, and it was a culture shock for me, so I can only imagine how much of a culture shock it is for our main character Cady. And I guess it's like learning a different language. Cady didn't know certain songs or pop culture references. She speaks English just like everyone else around her, but it still feels like she's speaking a totally different language. Everything is new, and she's experiencing many things for the very first time, and she has to learn how to read between the lines of what is said aloud and what is not said.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
So Cady keeps referencing her time in Africa all throughout this film, but based on different context clues, I'm guessing her and her family are from South Africa. Here's why. We already know that the largest number of white Africans is located in South Africa, but Cady refers to the jungle a lot. According to my research, there are no jungles. But let's not forget, her parents were research zoologists, so perhaps they studied countries outside of South Africa. Cady's mom mentions a specific tribe and how they have vases from this tribe underneath their sink. This tribe is located in Zimbabwe and parts of South Africa. Lastly, there was a moment where again Cady recalled her time in Africa, and the subtitle said the people were speaking in Afrikaans, a language primarily spoken in South Africa. And this, along with all the other reasons I just mentioned, is why I believe Cady and her family lived in South Africa, or at least another country in Southern Africa. I do believe they traveled to other countries across the African continent, but they always came back home to South Africa.
How do you spell your name again, Cady? It's Cady. Yeah, I'm gonna call you Cady.
Now let's talk about Damien and Janis. I don't think Cady had any true friends in this movie, or at least at the beginning of this movie. Before we get to the revenge story arc, Janis convinces Cady to become a part of the plastics and report her findings back to her. What kind of friend pushes you and insists that you infiltrate and spy on another group of people for them, especially after y'all just met? There was even a brief moment where Cady felt bad and wanted to pull out from their operation. Janis and Damien knew that Cady was new to the school, and more importantly, she was new to the country. She's not from around here. She is naive, vulnerable, and essentially an international student, although she doesn't stand out too much when you first look at her. And she obviously wants to have friends and to be accepted in this new and scary environment. There was also a moment where Janis and Damien convinced Cady to skip class with the excuse that they were her friends and they would never lead her astray. I truly believe Janis and Damien at first were a bad influence on Cady, and later in the movie they seem to be using Cady too. But at the end of the day, I do believe in a certain level of personal responsibility and taking responsibility over yourself and over your actions, despite any peer pressure you may face or encounter. During the revenge story arc, which we are about to get into, there came a point where Cady was no longer influenced by Janis and Damien. She was aware of herself and she was aware of her actions. Cady knew that she was going down the wrong route and becoming a person she did not want to be, yet she carried on despite this. No one was forcing her to, and this was a conscious decision on her part. At this particular moment, I truly felt that Cady had messed up.
Cady, will you please tell him his hair looks sexy pushed back? Your hair looks sexy pushed back.
At first I thought, it's so ironic. If Cady were herself, she probably would have been able to get with her crush, Aaron Samuels. But maybe not, since Regina might have still sabotaged Cady behind the scenes. I even think Regina spotted Cady's potential when she first met Cady, which is why she wanted to keep a close eye on Cady. Regina knows that she's at the top, and she seeks to maintain the hierarchy. We learn later in the movie from Gretchen that Regina doesn't even like Cady that much. So why did Regina keep Cady by her side? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. That is all I could think of. I believe Regina kept Cady Cady clothes as a way to keep her in line and potentially humble her if she felt like Cady was trying to outshine the sun, Regina. Her name's etymology means queen, literally. And the more I think about it, Regina didn't even want Aaron. When Regina shows Aaron affection, she always glances at Cady to gauge her reaction. She just doesn't seem that into him, especially emotionally. There is only physical attraction, which she expresses and acts on when they have an audience. Perhaps Regina only likes Aaron physically and materially. He's popular, athletic, and most importantly, he is wanted and desired by the other girls at their school. Aaron is the perfect status symbol to bring legitimacy to Regina's throne. Aaron is an accessory for Regina, nothing more, nothing less. Later in this movie, Aaron reveals to Cady that he liked Regina since she wasn't afraid to be mean or hide the negative parts of herself. Something along those lines.
There's good and bad to everybody, right? Regina's just... she's just more upfront about it.
This quote from Aaron, the love interest and male lead in this movie, really stood out to me. And I think this is because I assumed on some level that Regina was manipulating Aaron, and that he was a bit naive and perhaps not the brightest. I became biased since he wasn't doing too well in his math class and assumed this would be the same for the rest of his classes. We know Aaron is an athlete since we saw him play soccer and he was wearing a soccer jersey. So I just applied a bunch of stereotypes to his character, when this really wasn't the case. At the end of the day, Aaron knows exactly what he is signing up for when it comes to Regina. So why would he take her back after they broke up? His character puzzles me, and he is a lot more complicated than what I remember. Maybe he finds Regina incredibly attractive to the point that he's willing to look past her shortcomings. Who knows?
You can't sit with us!
Now, let's talk about Cady entering her revenge story arc and how much I loved it. So, Regina promised to help Cady and Aaron get together, but instead, Regina sabotaged Cady's chance at getting with Aaron, and she ended up taking Aaron for herself. After witnessing Regina's betrayal, Cady's new goal is to take down Queen Regina from the throne. Cady becomes fully assimilated within the plastics, from her hair, outfit, makeup, mannerisms, and more. This is especially apparent when we compare Cady to when we first met her at the beginning of the movie to now. Two completely different people. So their attempts at revenge seem to backfire initially or do nothing at all in the first month. But with time, we see that Cady is slowly destroying the plastics from within and making good progress on her revenge. And I don't know why it took me years to realize that Mean Girls is a story about revenge, betrayal, and vengeance. I just thought it was about a group of mean girls, but no, that's just on the surface. So what happens when you lose the plot? When you lose yourself in revenge? This is a story about fame and letting it all go to your head. This is a story about what happens when you obsess over and hate someone, and how you eventually destroy or lose yourself by becoming exactly like the object of your obsession and hate. This is a story about how an actor gets lost in their role and they become the person that they've been acting like, and they cannot remember the person they were before they took on this role. Cady lost herself and her purpose while taking the path of revenge. Eventually, we see that the dictatorship of Regina George is falling. Now, Cady is the de facto leader of the plastics. One of the goals to take down Regina George is to remove her arm candy, Aaron. Cady also still has a crush on Aaron, so she does make excuses for them to hang out alone together. The whole time during Aaron and Cady's math tutoring session, I was thinking, girl, back up. He's taken, stand up. Walk away. This isn't you. This isn't what you want. Usually I'm rooting for the first kiss of the male lead and the female lead in the stories I consume, but not for this story and not in this movie. In this scene, Cady blurts out that Regina is cheating on Aaron, officially marking Regina's downfall. But the satisfaction of taking down Regina doesn't last for too long, since Cady throws a house party where nothing goes her way. Everything blows up in Cady's face. Even Aaron says Cady is a clone of Regina, and Cady ends up losing Aaron, Janis, and Damien all in one night. Regina also finds out that Cady is the reason that she has been gaining weight, and she plans her own form of revenge.
Do not trust her.
The dethroned queen, Regina George, even when mad and upset, is still pretty clever. We see that this is especially true with the burned book scene. Regina was obviously the queen bee for a reason, and she had a pretty long reign as queen too. Do you know how smart you have to be Regina George? The former queen bee of the school was a master at communication, both verbal and nonverbal. She was a master manipulator, and she had a deep understanding of human psychology, gender dynamics, politics, and people. Female bullying tactics or relational aggression can be so subtle, almost invisible, and it can fly and go right over your head. And I'm speaking from experience. And we saw how insidious this subtle art of bullying can be all throughout this movie.
It was full tilt jungle madness.
Let's wrap this movie up. Regina prints out and distributes a copy of the burn book to the entire school, which causes chaos and mayhem. Janis exposes Cady and their plan to dethrone Regina to everyone. The prophecy hinted at the beginning of this movie was fulfilled, and Regina gets hit by a school bus. Cady attempts to right her wrongs. We have officially moved on from the revenge story arc to the self-redemption story arc. One of the best moments in this movie for me was Cady's moment of reflection and character growth during the Mathlete State Championship.
Calling somebody else fat won't make you any skinnier. Calling someone stupid doesn't make you any smarter. And ruining Regina George's life definitely didn't make me any happier.
In other words, attacking someone else won't make you feel better about yourself or solve your problems. Seeking revenge won't always satisfy you or ease your pain of betrayal. Use all that you know and do all that you can to solve the problem in front of you. This is what I took from the message of this movie. What do you think? But yeah, revenge isn't always the answer for everyone. So like the wise prophet once said, let it go.
Let it go for real. Let it go. Holla.
Of course, Cady and her team win the Mathlete State Championship, and Cady also wins the title of Spring Fling Queen. And Cady gave such a touching speech after being crowned Spring Fling Queen. I could see the growth. So what do I mean by a failed revenge story arc? Yes, Cady, Janis, and Damien succeeded in their goal of taking down Regina George, but at what cost? Cady got lost in her role, forgot the plot, and became just like the person who was the object of her obsession and hate. This was never the goal, but this was the result of her seeking revenge. I do not think the ends justified the means in this case. It wasn't worth it for Cady to take revenge against Regina if it meant that she would lose herself and everything she had worked for in the end. I love revenge and stories centered around revenge, but I have to admit that this movie's revenge story arc had a few satisfying moments, but was overall unsatisfying. And the final question I want to ask myself to wrap this video up is, how good did this movie make me feel and why? I was worried that this movie wasn't going to hold up well, but it was surprisingly still good even though it's been 20 years since this movie was released. I did find this movie to be hilarious, although some of the humor is outdated and somewhat offensive. It didn't feel malicious to me, but still. It was a sign of the times and a sign of what we allowed to be said back then. From the fashion, the boombox, the handheld video recorder, and other markers of the early 2000s, it was like opening up a time capsule and finding the phrases, fashion, stereotypes, and technology that were common from so many years ago. This movie was and still is iconic to this day. I truly enjoyed myself rewatching this movie, and I probably will feel the same way in a few years from now when I rewatch this movie yet again. My final rating for this movie is an 8 out of 10, and I would give it a 9 out of 10, but I don't think this movie made me feel better than the Cheetah Girls. But it did make me feel pretty good. Feel free to let me know if I missed anything in this video and if you have any suggestions on what I should watch and cover next. Thank you for making it all the way to the end, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.